There's a word that seems to crop up whenever people discuss a president that is unpopular: impeachment. People wanted President Bush impeached for pursuing an unpopular war, President Obama for expanding the role of the federal government, and President Trump for, well, a lot, frankly. And before all of them, President Clinton was impeached in the House but then acquitted by the Senate for perjury and obstruction of justice. That's not to equivocate, because there are immense substantive and qualitative differences between all of these men and the motivations behind why people wanted them impeached. But just as often as impeachment is invoked in popular conversation, it is also misunderstood. People understand intuitively that it's a way to remove presidents from office, but they may not know who can actually get impeached, why, and how the whole process starts. So today we're going to demystify and better understand impeachment. When we talk about impeachment, the first people who come to mind are usually presidents, such as earlier when I made the references to Presidents Clinton, Bush, Obama, and Trump. But they're not the only people who can be or who are impeached. Case in point, Republican members of the House made headlines back in July by submitting articles of impeachment against Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. They were eventually tabled due to massive pushback from the Democrats or members of their own party and from the public writ large, but it shows that impeachment is not a process that is reserved solely for the chief executive. In fact, the House has considered impeachment investigations on offices ranging from ambassadors to custom collectors. Over the United States' 229-year history, the House has officially considered impeachment proceedings just over 60 times. However, when it came time to actually passing articles of impeachment, the House has only done so 19 times, the majority of them actually being for federal judges, with only 2 instances being for presidents. If you thought those 2 were Presidents Clinton and Nixon, you'd only be half right. Although Nixon is often alluded to in discussions of impeachment, he actually resigned office once he was made aware that the House was considering impeachment and that there was a much higher chance of him losing than winning. So he opted to resign. The other president to undergo impeachment proceedings was Andrew Johnson in 1867. So how does impeachment work, and on what grounds can someone be impeached? Most of the goings-on about impeachment can be provided directly from the Constitution, which mentions it 6 times and spells out the basis for how the process works. Article 1, Section 2. The House of Representatives shall choose their Speaker and other offices, and have the sole power of impeachment. Article 1, Section 3. The Senate shall have the sole power to try all impeachments. When sitting for that purpose, they shall be on oath or affirmation. When the President of the United States is tried, the Chief Justice shall preside, and no person shall be convicted without the concurrence of 2/3 of the members present. Judgment in cases of impeachment shall not extend further to the removal from office and disqualification to hold and enjoy any office of honor, trust, or profit under the United States, but the party convicted shall nevertheless be liable and subject to indictment, trial, and judgment and punishment according to the law. Article 2, Section 4. The President, Vice President, and all civil offices of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. The 5th and 6th times use it basically to say in every case but impeachment, and they come from Article 2, Section 2, saying that the President can pardon anyone on all federal crimes except for impeachment, and in Article 3, Section 2, saying that all crimes besides impeachment will be tried by jury. Alright, so let's trace out how the process I just described plays out. First, the House of Representatives decide to write articles of impeachment. In the past, this could be submitted by any individual congressperson, but the norm for the 20th and 21st centuries is for it to be considered by the House Judiciary Committee. If they find that the idea is meritorious, they'll then submit it to the House for full consideration. According to the Constitution, these articles can only be drawn if the committee believes that the official has committed treason, bribery, or another form of high crime and misdemeanor. But what exactly constitutes a high crime or misdemeanor? Because the courts have ruled that impeachment is solely levied by the House and tried in the Senate, they have also ruled that only the House has the power to determine what qualifies as high crimes and misdemeanors. That is to say, it is a political distinction as opposed to a legal one. Congress can use credible belief that an illegal action has taken place for the motivation of an impeachment proceedings, but it is not making a legal verdict in the sense of a criminal investigation. Because it gets to choose what it means, there have been a variety of different reasons why the charges were considered. President John Tyler found himself the subject of an attempted impeachment for using his veto powers, and articles passed the House against District Judge Mark H. DeLahey for being intoxicated while on the bench. Although Congress isn't the only one who can submit the case for impeachment. Indeed, articles can be submitted by the Judicial Conference of the United States, federal prosecutors, by the President, or by petition. However, regardless of who starts it, it's the House that considers it. Once the reason is put forward, it must garner a majority vote in the House for it to pass. If a majority of House members agree to the impeachment charges, they then elect a handful of quote-unquote managers who are responsible for presenting the case to the Senate. Once in the Senate, it plays out similar to how a case would play out brought in court. Witnesses will be called and cross-examined, attorneys may or may not be present to help the case move forward, and a judge is present to oversee the proceedings. In the case of the president, it is the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. For other individuals, the Senate acts as both judge and jury. Just as the House has the Judiciary Committee to compile all the information then presented to the rest of the chamber, the practice in the Senate since the 1980s has been for a Senate Impeachment Committee to convene and hold the proceedings, to examine the witnesses, accumulate the evidence, all that stuff before presenting it to the rest of the Senate. This practice has raised ire among those who have been tried for impeachment since, but the Supreme Court ruled in the 90s that it doesn't have the grounds to adjudicate over how the practice is performed, basically allowing the Senate to keep doing what it's doing. Once the rest of the Senate is given the information and a chance to review it, the Constitution requires a 2/3 vote to expel the accused from office. If they don't receive that, then the individual is acquitted of the charges and allowed to continue in their position. This is, for the record, what happened in both cases that the House attempted to impeach a president. The votes were not there in the Senate. Both Johnson and Clinton were acquitted there. Who can get impeached then? Well, according to the Constitution, all federal-level civil servants can be impeached. However, in practice, the norm has been established that while judges and members of the executive can be impeached, members of Congress don't. It's not that they can't, there's just no need to. In 1797, Senator William Blount was impeached by the House and refused to attend his own Senate hearings. So instead, the Senate refused to hold the hearings and just expelled him from office. From there, a norm developed where the members of the House and Senate just kicked out problematic members instead of undertaking the more laborious impeachment proceedings. So that's basically impeachment in a nutshell. A quasi-legal proceeding associated with presidents, more commonly used on judges, starting in the House and ending in the Senate. It's a process sketched out by the Constitution, but very much informed by norms and other considerations. It's a lot to kind of grapple and get your head around, but hopefully you're better able to navigate public discussions on the topic for when they invariably come up again in the future. I'm curious to see what you guys think about all this impeachment stuff, thoughts that cropped up while watching this video, or suggestions for future topics down in the comment section below. I look forward to reading all of them, answering a few of them in the next office hours. Last week we talked about what it would take to make a Space Force, a proposed 6th branch of the military. Let's come back down to earth and see what y'all thought about it. I'm honestly surprised that I didn't see any Rocket Man jokes in the comment section, but I do appreciate Rio Mio's Space Odyssey quip. For here I am, sitting in a tin far above the world, planet Earth is blue, and there is nothing I can do. But is it all that blue, and maybe is there something we can do about that? Shameless plug. I find myself, if I can inject my own opinion here, agreeing with Helios Infinitus. He notes that a Space Force is probably an inevitability, but it'd probably just be fine as a branch of the Air Force. He also felt that space wars would be, quote, stupidly expensive, and that space should remain a place for science and satellites. I think that some sort of centralization is inevitable, and considering the opinions of those who are more involved than I am, I would much prefer it to be a central command as opposed to a full-fledged Space Force. I think that space is the common heritage of mankind and should subsequently reflect the better aspects of our nature, the noble ideals that we strive for, like peace, cooperation, and exploration that are as lofty as the heavens that space contains. So yeah, you're not going to find any disagreement with me here. Chase the Deck Builder and Eric Schmidt both raised comments that were on the topic of our commitments with the Outer Space Treaty, prohibiting us from weaponizing space, which in hindsight I probably should have spent a minute or two going over, because as these comments made clear, there is a tension that exists intrinsically within any discussion of a Space Force, and that is just how much of it is going to be consolidating existing and perfectly legal space work by the US military, and how much is it trying to carve out space as a warfighting domain. The latter is not only looked down upon by the international community, it's also probably against the Outer Space Treaty, which the US is a party of. But that sort of thing does seem to be what the president is talking about in his speeches on the topic, although that is also muted in the DoD's memo that I discussed. So I think that we're seeing a president who is unafraid of bombast, and a defense agency who is looking to make his rhetoric as real as they can without violating international law. God bless them. It's a hell of a task. If anybody can do it, my bet is with them. That's all the time we have for today, guys. Thank you so much for your comments. Please keep them coming. I love reading them. I love responding to them in this kind of format. I'll be taking next week off because next Monday is Labor Day, and Mondays are the days that I film out and produce the week's videos. So I'll see you guys back here in 2 weeks with more social science-y goodness. Links for everything that we talked about as always be down in the doobly-doo, as well as links to Facebook, Twitter, and the blog. Look forward to seeing you guys out there as well. If you enjoyed this video, I hope you consider giving it a thumbs up. If you want to support the channel, you can do so by commenting down below, by sharing this video, and by subscribing to the channel to stay in the loop for more awesome social science content as uploaded. If you want to be guaranteed to be in the loop when I upload a new video, be sure to click the bell icon as well. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time.